Hey guys, so welcome to another beautiful episode of the Billionaire Habit podcast with me, Stephen Akintayo, and today I have a special guest in the building. Okay, she's called Mo, and then we'll call her Mo Famoti.
Ade Famoti.
Ade Famoti, yeah? First thing is, what's Ade Famoti? Particularly the word Famoti.
Well, Famoti is my husband's last name. His first name is Ade, so I took both.
What does Famoti mean?
I think it's from it's Yoruba. I think the full name is Ifamoti, so I think they just shortened it to Famoti. I'm assuming now. That's my married name.
Okay. I get that. So I mean, I that makes sense. So tell us about yourself. Now I know you have done real estate. You're an entrepreneur. And by the way, guys, I'm excited having. Each time I have a female entrepreneur, I'm so excited because we often don't get enough. And why do you think so?
I think women are generally, I don't want to say sidelined, because a lot of great women are doing great things. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to just do more. And I think women generally with money, I think men are much more comfortable talking sharing money than women are.
Yeah. So I think
there's there are quite a few young women doing great things out there. So
okay. Yeah, but we need more. Because sometimes for me looking for female speakers, and I'm struggling to get, but at certain level, and the few ones that are known, of course there are many who are, but many are not known.
Yes.
But the ones who are known, there's so few, and sometimes it's difficult to really get to assess them. So in your own definition, who is Mo?
Well, my full name is Moturaya Ade Famoti, and I call myself the ultimate investor.
Ultimate investor?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I believe in investments. I teach a 4-quadrant income spree. Okay. So you have income from your job, you have income from entrepreneurship, you have income from consultancy and collaboration, and of course you should have income as an investor. So investor quadrant is where I really belong, because I believe in making your money work for you, understand the concepts of money, understand entrepreneurship, and you can really build a great legacy, not just with money but generational wealth as well. You can build great generational wealth through money. So for me, money is the one part of it, but also what are you teaching your children? Because you're gone. It's not enough. I think the syllabus has changed. Before, it's all about what are you leaving for your children? And then, as the Bible says, a good man leaves inheritance for his children's children. But we're taking it a step further. It's not just leaving money for your children. You can leave all the money in this world and squander it. We talked about Vanderbilt. Can you imagine in less than how many years the entire wealth of one of the richest men in the world disappeared? But not just what are you leaving, the legacy you're leaving your children. Do they understand what mom and dad does? Do they understand entrepreneurship? Do they understand investments? What do they know about money? Because more than often, the most important thing is what you leave them, not just the money you leave them with, the legacy leave them with. So I think I'm very much about that. So in summary, I'm in the money space. I teach investments, which is real estate and paper investment. I believe in teaching children about money, so I'm very heavy on that. And my son started trading at 10 years old.
Wow.
And I also believe between husbands and wives, they should talk about money constantly. So my household is one that we talk about money, and we're very expressive about it.
Nice.
Unapologetically.
Nice. So your background is in law.
Yes, I'm a trained attorney in America and also a solicitor in the UK. So my background is law, nothing to do with money. I didn't study finance. I didn't study economics or accounting, none of that stuff. But I find myself in there, and I think that's also a testament that you don't have to come from such a background. You can just pick up from where you are and take it up notch. So
why did you technically abandon law and then went for money?
I don't think I ever abandoned law or ever will, because law is in me. I'm in law. I'll always use it because I did practice law for a number of years.
Okay.
But
how long did you practice?
In England, I think I practiced maybe Not so long, maybe a total of 5-6 years I practiced law.
In England?
England mostly.
Yeah.
I practiced law.
And then in the US?
In the US, I practiced a little bit of law, but I've done more money stuff, real estate in the US than legal stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that always helps because I understand contracts. I can draft it. I can understand, I have very strong negotiation skills. So that really comes, into play. But I think moving to Nigeria initially, when we moved to Nigeria, I found myself in the capital markets. I was into trusteeship work and wealth management, all of that. So that sort of exposed me to money. And so when I left that space, I decided that, what do I do? Went to God, prayed about it, and I felt being led that, you've listened to Bloomberg for the last couple of years. Actually started with just trading a stock. Wow. It's a very interesting story.
Wow.
So I left the financial space. I was on my own, just had a baby. I was like, what do I do? And I thought, what do you have? I began to dig deep. What are my skills? What do I enjoy? And I thought, okay, I've been following the stock market for a while. I didn't quite understand it, but I just noticed that Netflix used to hover between $90 and $120. And I got a bright idea that if I buy it at 90 and I sold it at 120, I was going to make some nice change. And that's exactly what I did. And in 3 days, I made just under $3,000. So I was like, this is for me.
$3,000 in profit.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Just clicking 2 minutes work over a 3-day period.
Yeah.
And that sort of started my journey into the stock market. And it was specifically focused on foreign stocks because I also understood the climate we're in, the devaluation of the naira. So I always believed in hedging my bets against that. So I focused on understanding the foreign climate, the stocks, the bonds, ETFs, mutual funds. I began to go into that. Now we do futures and options. And of course, I've always understood real estate because I started real estate in England very young. I was about 20, 21 when I went into real estate in England. So I sort of just maintained both. And that's been my foray into the industry.
Interesting. I mean, so wait, how much was the first amount you invested? I know you made $3,000, but how much was the first amount you invested in?
To make the $3,000? Yes. It's actually it's actually my husband's account. I just, in America, they always have 401k and Roth IRA and all that. And I just looked at his holdings. Okay, well, I can walk around this, sold 1 or 2 things. And that's how I started, really. I can't remember exactly how much he had in it, in his retirement account, but I just jiggled things around. And I thought, okay, if I can do this in 3 days, what more can I do? And I was just logging in periodically and just changing the composition. And it's just,
So it wasn't like someone taught you?
Not at all.
Or you self-taught?
Completely self-taught. YouTube does wonders.
Wow.
Completely self-taught. But as soon as I went into it, I started reading more books about it.
Yeah.
I started to watch more videos about it. And I started to just consume so much information. I listened to Jim Cramer and so many other people, so many analysts, and just reading and understanding it. And that's pretty much how I learned. I think once or twice I've done some formal courses, but I realized that even when I did those courses, I knew 95% of that. So it really was, I just, sort of jumped into the deep end for this one.
Why do you think that we seldom find enough women in that space of money now, generally? I mean, when we talk about money, and you look at it, women need money more because it's about taking care of the family for a lot of women. But you hardly find women being confident to say, I understand how money works. I play in the money market.
I think a lot of women are intimidated by money. I find out that. I think a lot of women just feel it's probably, I'm not one of them, so I'm only guessing here. I think they probably feel that, men tend to handle finances. Let me just focus on taking care of the family. And then the money they're concerned with is the money for the household. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why. on the other hand, I also think it had to do with the way I was raised. I was raised raised by a woman who was very, very strong entrepreneurially.
Oh,
she was an investor, and she sort of just drummed it into our ears that buy this land. I remember when I bought this land in Magodo, this is what it was going for. I remember when they were telling me about Banana Island, this is what it was going for, this and that. And she used to tell us the stories. You know, she doesn't have a massive college degree or master's or anything like that, but she understood money. She understood buying something and selling it for profit. So she understood the basics, and she did very well for herself. Yeah. So I sort of grew up in that with the typical, I probably call her an alpha woman.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, so I think that tremendously helped, because that exposed me at whatever small scale it did. And then, so naturally, when I came to, and with all the stories my mom constantly told me, I knew that, okay, I will have a hold on my finance. The fact, not understanding my money was not even something I was going to contemplate. I had to understand investment. I had to understand real estate. I had to understand money. And then, so when I finished college in England, or university in England those days, I naturally, getting a job was very difficult at that time. I studying law was even more restrictive. So I had to create income for myself. So you studied
law in England?
In England, yeah. Okay. So I after high school here in Nigeria, I went to England I did my college, and I studied law, master's, law school, everything in England. So getting a job was very difficult, which was a blessing in disguise, because it forced me to be extremely creative. So I was able to buy a property. I got myself into all kinds of schemes. They did 100% mortgage. I went into it, you know, just so I can get a property. Yeah. And I just figured out one thing. After paying my client, my mortgage, I have like £300 left. Wow. And for me, that was a lot of money back then. Like, if I have 2 of those properties, that's £600. So I did the second one, and it was £600-700 I was getting after. I was like, this is brilliant. And I already understood equity, you know, appreciations and all. So it's okay, well, this is what I really want to do. And that was how I started in England, you know. And even when I got a job, I wasn't paid much, because I was more like an intern. I was just paid £400, and then it went up to £600 at the most. So all of that. So I was like, you know what? I think me having control over my own money and my finance is very attractive to me. I believed in ownership. I believed that I could control my own income and my own destiny ultimately. And the idea of giving somebody power to do that, it just didn't work for me. So all my life, if I'm gonna put together all my working life with 20-some years experience, I probably spent less than 5 years working with someone. Wow. You know,
you've always been an entrepreneur.
I would probably say that, maybe more of an investor, because I really enjoyed the investment parts of it.
Yeah, that's true.
But obviously, as an investor, you've got to raise funds as an entrepreneur. So I believed in you know, money, in being in the money space, and I was not shy to talk about it. You know, I was not one of those women that would say, oh, you know, I needed to marry somebody that was extremely wealthy, or from your honest bunch. Have 20 million naira in the account?
No, 20 million to date her. Per date.
Well, I'd rather be the woman with the 20 million, because I mean, it's no joke, because why would I give so much power to a guy? It's okay, you've got to be worth something. I can be worth that amount and more.
Come on. Let me be the one to pay you 30 million.
You know, be worth your money, but I know my worth. You know, I know what I bring to the table. So, and I've never shortchanged myself. I've never been apologetic about the power that I hold. As a woman, as a child of God, and as an ultimate Jesus lover. So for me, you know, it was not a bargain. I knew I was going to be successful, and I know, and I will be that person writing the check. So, and I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of failure, and I've had several failures in my life.
So how much is the biggest money you've ever lost as an investor?
Oh my God, should we go there? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I think without putting an actual figure to it, it's millions of dollars.
5, 10, 20?
Well, more than 5, certainly.
Wow.
Yes.
And this was how many years ago?
It's a few years ago. Very recent, not too long ago.
So how did you bounce back from such?
I don't know if one truly ever bounces back from that sort of loss or that sort of catastrophe, as I like to call it. But I think that you learn to hold on your challenges and move on. If you're waiting for a moment that all of a sudden you're going to bounce back, like, you never come out of it, but you always remind yourself of those lessons learned. Never to repeat it again, all right? And to take the good and then just move on, to learn to move on with it. Because I tell you, if you're trying to wait for that moment, that singular moment, that haha moment that, is going to give you that kind of enigma, I'm out of it. I think you probably wait forever.
Wow.
So I look to the future. I'm also the daughter of a king. My father owns the entire world.
Come on.
And there's greatness within. There's nothing that I've lost that Job hasn't lost way more than that. And he bounced back. So God has given me the precedence to look into, to say, you know what, if you're suffering in a certain area, you have my word as a comfort. And I have to say that it has been tremendously amazing. When I went through my failures and my losses, did I cry? Oh, I cried many nights, I was scared like anybody else.
Did you contemplate a suicide?
I think those things cross your mind naturally that, what, maybe this is an easy way out. Let me just end it, But I'm also, like I said, I'm way too into God, way too knowledgeable with the word of God to even think that was even a remote possibility, So you have thoughts that might come to your mind, but you know what? It's not for me. It's like you giving me a gun to say, go rob a bank. I probably go straight to the police station and say, look at what this man is saying. It just doesn't fit my personality.
Yeah.
And so, I knew whom I served, and I knew who I was, and I knew whose I was. And with that was the strength that I needed to continue the journey.
What was the biggest lesson from some of those, setbacks and losses?
Huge. Don't be too trusting. I was way too trusting.
I
think that was my number one weakness. I am way too trusting because I trust
we
people.
Share that in common.
I'm truly an honest person. I'm very honest. I'm easily read. I'm someone that you can easily read. I wear my emotions on my sleeve sometimes, and so I think I ascribe too much to people that, what, if you tell me you can do this, why would I not trust you? Whereas I should have been more towards trust being earned rather than just being given, I was so trusting, and you must approach this. So one of my greatest lessons is to approach everyone with suspicion. You've got to keep some power to yourself. There's no reason to be too trusting. And I really was. So I think that was my number one lesson. Number two, this is from Warren Buffett now, do not test the waters with both feet. I think there's a difference between common sense and motivation. Do not motivate yourself out of common sense. You become a motivated fool.
Oh, no, you just repeat that one. Repeat that one. Do not motivate yourself out of common sense, else you will become a motivated fool.
Absolutely.
Powerful.
Absolutely. I think that the idea that somebody tells you you can do it, or you psych yourself in the mirror saying that yes, you can do it, and you go and do it, that's just being idiotic, because you cannot do everything. You've got to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. You've got to do your research thoroughly. Now, don't do analysis paralysis. Don't go the extreme. But you've got to do enough so that you know what, I can get it done, and try and do it one step at a time. Don't just go into it. So I can do all things, I can do it, and just go ahead and do it. I think that was one of another lesson that I learned. I should just gone easy on some of the projects I was going instead of just going full on, you know. And I blame myself for it because depending on who your mentors are, who you're talking to, especially when you're talking to people that, you know, they're so into Christ and everything is like, you can do everything. If it's not successful, that means your village people are chasing you and all of that. No, business is hard. You've got to understand that what you're doing is extremely hard.
Yeah.
Take it one step at a time. Yeah. Even if God tells you to do something, it doesn't mean you're not going to fail at it. Because, you know, his ways are not our ways. That failure could be the lesson he's trying to teach you.
Very true. Very true.
So that was a fundamental mistake I made because I felt that because, this is great and it has God in it, I wouldn't fail. No, you can fail. You can absolutely fail.
Powerful.
Take it one step at a time. So I was too trusting. I tested the water with both feet, you know, and I got beaten badly.
Wow.
Yes. But one of the other things I've also learned through the journey is that you have to forgive yourself.
Yes, that one is the hardest one.
You've got to forgive yourself. What are you carrying the baggage for? Your father, you confess your sin, your father forgives you. What are you carrying the baggage for? You've got to forgive yourself. And yes, you have to understand that there's a reaping phase. The fact that this loss was so much, it's going to distort a lot of things.
Yes.
You're going to have some of your investors at war with you.
Exactly. So how do you manage that? I mean, the name calling, the shame, the battle with, I mean, some of your investors are coming at you like it is war, real war.
Well, in my case, I have to say I was fortunate that what happened, you know, because I had most of my money in it.
Okay.
You know, so I was probably my biggest investor. And first thing I saw what the enormity of what happened.
Yeah.
I was honest about what happened. I was able to pay a lot of it from my personal funds.
So
when I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
I was honest about what happened. Said, you know what, I can't on this journey anymore. I've done my best.
Yeah.
I involved the authorities, right? And, you know, I followed whatever happened, the full out of the law, you know, and
you got justice because it's America.
Well, I got justice.
But because it's America, if it's in Nigeria, I mean, the corporate could go scot-free.
He probably will because, I mean, I won't say, I mean, nobody, even if you jail somebody for 20, 30 years, there's something called parole, you know, and jailing somebody doesn't mean the money comes back.
Yeah, that's
It is
true.
what it is.
That's true.
But at some point in your life, you just got to move on. You have just got to move on.
Yeah.
Face your challenges head on. Deal with your failures with your head held high. You've got to.
Yeah.
You've got to. And then you hope for the best. I trust in him. And, you know, when there's life, there's hope. See, I always say it's not as bad as Job. And Job came through it.
Yeah, he did.
Absolutely.
He did. What's the role of supportive husbands for, I mean, I would say ambitious investors or entrepreneurs like yourself?
Well, you're right. I am extremely hardworking. I'm extremely ambitious. And I am what I am. I think, honestly, I couldn't be where I was if I didn't have a supportive husband. I couldn't. My husband literally supported me from day one, and picked up all of everything that needed to be picked up the bill, supported me, you know, believed in me. I didn't
use it against you.
And that was very, I mean, we had tough conversations on what I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
I knew where my mistakes were. Yeah. And we had tough conversations about it that, you know what, you should have done this one. And I know I should have listened more, you know. Everybody has their own journey to, you know, and their own cross to bear. And mine was not an exception, you know. So it's all about communication. as a family.
Yeah.
Communicating with your kids, communicating with your spouse, and so on and so on. And we support each other. I'm his greatest supporter when it comes to his career. And I enjoyed the privilege of vice versa. But one more, because a lot of women also say, you know what, my husband this, my husband that. What does support look like? There's no spouse that's going to 100% support everything you want to do.
Yeah.
Except you married him perfect.
True.
You've got to understand that.
That's true.
And otherwise, you also got to understand that and give them the room to, should I say, acclimatize to these new changes that you're bringing, because you're bringing a lot of changes. Maybe you started your marriage with one kind of behavior, and now you want to change, you want to grow. You've got to give space for that, because maybe they're trying to learn the new you, and then another new one comes every week. But the truth of the matter is that I think with constant dialogue and communication you can get through it. But I always say, at the end of the day, whose dream is it? Is it your dream? If it's your dream, you've got to find a way to make it work. Not necessarily fighting or arguing or bickering, but you've got to find a way to make it work. I remember one time I told my husband, I was still in the banking industry then, and I said, I really want to do this juice thing. And, I mentioned to him a couple of times. He said, okay. But then I didn't feel like he was supporting me. And then one day I was like, oh, I can't believe you're not supporting me for this. Then he just looked at me and said, you know what? If you want to do it now. And I thought to myself, that was just such an easy answer for me. Yeah. And since then, it's like, you know what? If you really want to do something, it's your dream, go ahead and do it. Now, the skill with which you do it might be up for, you might have to use a bit of common sense there. But
you started quite early. I mean, at 20, you're already a lawyer. And so I can imagine by the time you're getting married, you had a measure of success. And of course, you're ambitious. You knew you were ambitious. You wanted to do great things. Do women in your position, a lot of young ladies are watching this single, do you marry somebody who is richer? Or do you marry somebody who, even if they're not near where you are, love is love.
Honestly, for me, I'm not... I obviously knew I couldn't marry somebody of a certain standard, not because of pride or arrogance, but because of...
They will be intimidated?
No, it's not even intimidation. It's like, you've got to marry somebody who gets you.
Yeah.
Who you are, who you can communicate with.
Yeah.
Somebody you're obviously attracted to. So... that was for me important. This, whether I'm richer or the person is richer than me, I knew I was going to be very successful.
Yeah.
And I was working my way to success. I was a hard worker. Like I said, at 20, I'd already passed the New York bar. One of the, youngest in the history to pass, one of the youngest ever to pass the New York bar.
Wow.
So for me, I was extremely hardworking.
And that was after you had already been called to bar in the UK.
So at 20, I finished my law degree in England.
Okay.
And I immediately went to America to the New York bar.
Okay.
So, and then I came back to England to do the legal practice courses called equivalent of a Nigerian law school.
Yeah.
And then did my master's and all of that. So I passed the New York bar. When I was in the New York bar, I was in class with people like 27, 28, and I was just 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't a question of whether I knew, and it wasn't pride or arrogance, but because I'm also, the daughter of a king, like I said.
Yeah.
So I was not going to shortchange myself by marrying someone who didn't understand work ethic, who wasn't hardworking, who was not going somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no way that person would be remotely attractive to me. Do you see what I'm saying? But in terms of whether richer...
But some people find themselves in a situation whereby, they are probably intelligent at this level, but the guy that came or they fall in love with isn't as ambitious. And then, because I've seen a lot of those situations where it's not as if it's my husband pulling me back and, and he's feeling threatened by my ambitions, by my dreams and goals. Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I think every couple goes through this, either before, during marriage or so, where you feel slightly that you're being left behind, or you feel slightly intimidated by one person or the other. Let's be honest. I've talked to a lot of married people. They feel like, oh, my husband doesn't get me, or my wife is not doing enough, and all of that. But I normally speak to the women. I said, you're doing yourself great injustice if you're not living to the highest and best expression of yourself. Because when God gave the talent, he did not give you a talent for you to go bury it. And one thing we know is that if you don't use it, you will lose it. So if you feel like this staying at home, staying with the kids is the best thing you want to do, that's your calling, be the best at it and enjoy it. But if you feel like it's not enough for you and you want to go out there and do business or a career in a corporate environment, go do it. Because those children will grow up and leave you know. And the husband that you say told you not to work will also tell you that if you didn't work, why didn't I write a book? Why didn't I write this? Why didn't I write that? So, you know, sometimes you've got to be slightly selfish and say, you know what do I want to be? I'm in this marriage. You want a fulfilled wife. You want a fulfilled husband. So you have a conversation. This is what fulfills your husband. Be the show up for him. This is what fulfills your wife. Show up for her. And be great partners while you're at it. You know, one person should not go and just leave the other person behind. That's a bit unfair, you know. And one thing I looked at my parents. My father, retired assistant deputy controller general of customs. But my mom was an entrepreneur. When my father retired, she took on the reins and she supported her husband like no man. Because when my father was in active duty, he supported her with her contacts and all. So I sort of saw the partnership and how beautifully it worked. And towards the end of his life, you know, when he became really sick, who was there? My mom was one that when he was even saying they went to England, they went to. Okay. When they went to England, they came back, said, oh, he's still sick. We need to go. Oh, they said the India is the best place. Now let's go to India. My mom would take a crew. His doctor, my brother, my mom, all of them would go to India. She just spared no expense to make it. Now, if he didn't invest in her, he would have died years before his time. That's the truth. So when you're not investing in your spouse, you're really shooting yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's important that you continue to dialogue, all right, and see what works for you as a couple. And I try not to give a generalistic financial advice. I also try not to give a generalistic marital advice. I don't know if I'm qualified to give one. But at least I've been with my husband for 20 years now, at least.
You've been married for how many years?
I've been married for close to 18 now.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you qualify.
So, but what does that look like? I think I saw some clip going around with somebody saying, you know, you have to kneel down to give your husband food. Well, I don't kneel down to give my husband food. I probably feed him while I'm at it. But we have a good time. We have a good laugh. It works for us. So whatever works for you, do you. Do you see what I'm saying? But I know universally support, communication, liking each other is key. And when you're there for each other, it shows, it translates to the children, you know, and ultimately, you know, you're in this thing together.
Beautiful. I mean, I like that. So, I mean, one of the things that is fascinating about you is you are like the typical CAC prayer fasting. And when you talk, nobody will believe you're that kind of person because you don't look it and you don't even talk it. But you're at the gym, let's pray. But what's also is, you know, interesting is you're very logical. So how do you think that religion has messed people up in building wealth? And how have you been able to still be spiritual, but not get messed up with those?
You had to go there, right?
I had to.
I think you give me a couple of minutes to unpack that one because I think that religiosity has a lot as you know, taking its pound of flesh from entrepreneurs and from business people. This idea that you want to go into a business and the first person you go talk to is your pastor, asking him to pray for you.
Thank you.
I think I've been there, I've done that, and it's probably crushing at best. It's really, really sad. And one of my greatest failures actually emanated from that.
Really?
Absolutely. The belief that one person can pray to you, pray to God on your behalf and tell you that this is what you should be doing. It's a travesty. You have access to God. It's not like you're trying to climb a mountain to go talk to God. He lives right inside of you. And you can talk to him. And you have a book called Proverbs that gives you the cheat sheet on how to build a successful business.
Come on.
Use it and use it wisely. The Bible even says it in Proverbs that out of many people, the truth shall be established. Not one person. The Bible says that it is not good for one person to be alone. Don't make a mini God out of your pastor.
An idol.
And most of the time, or an idol out of your pastor. Most of the time, they don't even understand business.
True. Very true.
They don't understand.
Very true.
Putting structures together.
They might control assets in large quantity as a result of their position, but it doesn't mean they understand business in itself.
So, and I think I learned my bitter lesson because taking advice from somebody who never trades was probably a dumb thing to do. So I say that's my advice to people. And at the time I didn't know, because I'm very spiritual, like you said, very believe in God. And so when I pray and, I know that this is what God is saying, I just go ahead on. But even if God is telling you to do it, there's this thing called seeing in parts and prophesying in parts. You don't sometimes know 100% what is going on.
True.
It unravels. Ideas are not fully formed when they get started.
Very true.
They come in stages. He gives you enough dose just to understand this. And there's another room, just as you repair this room, there's another room you have to go into. There's a higher level. And you've got to understand that.
True.
So the idea that one thing is supposed to just, no, it doesn't work in real life. And I think I spent most of my failures came from thinking that was the true ideology.
Wow.
But now I know better.
Wow.
If I have an idea, I told you I was looking at closing some parts of my business and starting some parts of the business. I know exactly what to do. When I close that one down, I'm going to start this new one. I'm not going to stop being too trusting. I'm not going to start with both feet. I'm going to test the waters first. I'm going to engage. I'm going to dialogue. I'm going to bring experts. I'm not going to be afraid of getting as much information. Even if I spend a lot of money on the initial formulation stage, let me do that and kill the idea if it's not going to be viable right from start. And those are great things, simple biblical, simple business principles. Have a mentor in play as well.
That's very important.
It's very important.
The place of business mentor, investment mentorship. Why do you think a lot of Christians feel once I have a great pastor? I made that mistake as well. I felt, once I have Bishop Oyedepo, I don't need any business mentor. I don't need any investment mentor. Big mistake. But why do you think we fall into that trap of I have a great spiritual mentor and then I don't need anybody else?
I think it's both sides. It's not just us falling into the trap. It's also the way gospel is being presented to us.
Oh, okay.
It's a two-part. It takes two to tango. I think we generally, because we revere men of God highly in Nigeria.
We do.
We do. And then the men of God also take time out to let us know that God talks to them all the time. And, so you come up with this idea that God talks to them more than he talks to you. So if you have ears, better listen to what he's saying because, he's hearing the undiluted version.
Yeah, you're always diluted.
But you know what? God is in you. The moment you accept him, God. In fact, the Muslims, they're Buddhists, they're Buddhists, they're all that. They don't have Christ,
and they're rich.
And they make great decisions, and they're very wealthy financially. It shows that there's some principles that you've got to follow, and whatever religion you are, if you follow these principles, you will be successful. So I have spent a great amount of time studying what those principles are. Do you get what I'm saying? In order to say, you know what, it's a science, and it's all in the Bible. These people are using the Bible.
Yeah. True.
That we leave for someone else to interpret. They're reading it themselves, and they're using it, and they're getting results. So how much more we, children of God, whom He came for? So you've got to understand that there's no cheat sheet anywhere. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to go into business, I can guarantee you will fail.
Guarantee. So
it is not village people. It is not a maybe.
You may not guarantee.
If you know that you're going to fail, then you can start failing forward.
Wow.
You can start failing one step at a time so that you can eventually get rid of all these failures to where you're going to.
Come on.
So when you are...
So failure is not the opposite of success. Is on the pathway to success.
Failure is feedback. Feedback is knowledge. And knowledge is power.
Come on.
The ultimate power.
Come on.
So when you see failure as power, it changes the dynamics.
Wow.
It is not village people chasing you. Whatever it is you've gone through, somebody else has gone through it. And you can lean on their own shoulders and ride on their way to success. So you already know that is set in stone. So at least if you're thinking that failure was because, somebody cussed you out, or, I've given you freedom. Free yourself from all that nonsense, Number three, you need to build the right mindset. You just have to. Everything starts, you are what you think about all day long. If you believe you can, like, Henry Ford said. And if you believe you can, nobody can. You've got to, and I always say, not fake it till you make it. Start by truly thinking that you can do it. At first, it's going to feel like an imposter syndrome. But very quickly, you believe it long enough, you start to act it, think it, and you start to behave towards it. You just gravitate towards what you think about all day long. The things that are happening to me now, I'm like, I can't even believe that. I was on my way and I was like, I can't even believe this happened. And I just heard the quiet voice that, I'm able to do exceedingly abundantly more than anything you want, think, or desire. And that's why the book Think and Grow Rich is a very good book.
Yeah, good book.
So, you've got to have a complete mindset change. You've got to. Our environment doesn't particularly, it's very impactful when it comes to your mindset. If you need friends that can ginger you, change the ones you have. Change the ones you have. Read more books. Grow. Invest in yourself. Yes, it's good to save for the future. Because you can become obsessed with saving for the future and forget to live the present. I'm big on saving for the future, but I've always also told myself that I'm going to live for the moment because tomorrow is not guaranteed.
True.
For anyone,
Yeah. I mean, you can say that again. Someone who just finished 4-day vacation. Okay.
So I think all of that, and there's so many principles that if we started, we wouldn't finish. But I think those key ones, I would like to focus on those key ones.
Beautiful. I mean, it's been a fantastic conversation. I mean, as I want to ask, will you ever, do you think politics is for you?
Ooh, no one has ever asked me that. I don't know if I've thought about it. I think that I'm contributing to my own quota this way. Okay. I think that politics for me is not necessarily picking one side over the other. I think I can contribute politically through my entrepreneurship. Okay. Because the truth of the matter is that if you're part of a government, you're leading a group of people. You need the entrepreneurial skills to successfully lead the people. If you're rolling out projects as government, you need the skills. So I think those things, I'm contributing my quota in one way or the other. Whether or not I will hold a political appointment in the future, I don't know.
Yeah. But will you be open to that? I mean, you're an American Nigerian, right? So will you be open, at least in America and Nigeria?
Oh, definitely I would be, because any opportunity to teach, to impact knowledge is very, very attractive to me. Okay. And to learn as well is very attractive to me.
Okay.
So Why not?
For Senator. Senator Mo or Rep Mo.
You never know. I would not tell you I've ever thought about it, but you know what? Hey.
Yeah, oh boy. And you have your CV is loaded for it. I mean, lawyer, this, you know. So if anyone watching this now want to start building wealth, paper asset, even though I really want to work with you on a coaching program. I have a coaching program for those who are trying to invest. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at bringing you on board for that. But for people watching, as they want to start investing in paper asset, what are like the first few quick steps they need to take?
Okay, first quick step, I would say don't start by paying somebody to teach you. I think start with YouTube. It's free. It's very available. Mm-hmm. I would say do what typically people do. If you decide that you want to start with $100 a month, mm-hmm. or 100,000 a month, or 10,000 a month, you can start with that. I would say if you have no knowledge about trading, open a dummy account. Mm-hmm. Open a dummy account. A dummy account is basically just you buying pretend stocks. Do that for a while, see how you fare, and then buy the real, then start the real thing.
The courses.
I would say, look at top companies. And this is not a financial advice, so I don't want to be quoted on this.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. But I think I will start with top companies as the top companies for a reason. I would not necessarily start with Forex or penny stocks.
Tesla? You want to share with me your love for Tesla?
Tesla,
Tesla stocks now, not the car.
So if I was going to start or advise somebody who wants to trade, open a trading account is the first thing you do. Put some money in there and buy your first stock. I'll probably start with Apple, because Apple is consistently over 4 decades. It constantly does stock split. They pay dividends and they've constantly gone up. It's a safe stock. It's not, it's not going to double overnight. At any time. Neither would it crash overnight. So I would say probably start with safe stocks like that. Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook, stocks like that. They're part of the DJI Dow Jones Index for a reason. Top companies, you want to be comfortable with that. Look at earnings reports, study the terminologies on the stock market, year on cash equivalent, what the PE ratio is. You want to learn on how to do a technical analysis, looking at the charts. You want to learn how to do a fundamental analysis by looking at the balance sheet and the profit and loss account. You want to read a bit of analyst report. I don't take that too seriously because sometimes they're paid to write what they write. So you want to just learn the basics, and you can learn that there are loads of YouTube videos that can teach you that. Honestly, you can start trading just on YouTube alone before you even go there. But I would say the biggest lesson or the biggest caution I always throw out there for novice investors is to learn money management. Money management is key. What is money management in this context? Is the ability that maybe the market drops, there's a recession, the correction, you're not running to sell your stocks. No. You've done your analysis. When you did your analysis, you've invested in the market. You got to trust the process. Okay? And just leave it. And you want to invest for the long term.
Not just short term.
Not the short term. Or you get yourselves burnt by finding out which stock God tells you to buy. I've heard that even in church. God said I should buy this. God speaks to all of us. I mean, I've heard voices of buying a stock and it's worked very well for me. And I've also heard voices to buy and it hasn't worked well. So try not to beat the market because nobody else really can. Nobody else does it, even if you do it in a short-term success. But leave the money there for the long term. Know that, you know what, you're putting $100 every month in the market or $200 every month, whatever it is you can. And just leave it for the long. Let the stock market, let it do what it does, and while you look at it periodically and you begin to read more, because now that you're an investor in a company, you want to know what the company is doing. You want to check it out. You want to know what the year-end reports are, the quarterly earnings and all of that. So I always advise people to do that. And when you get started that way, once you're comfortable with that, you can look at mutual funds. Mutual funds, I'm not a huge fan of mutual funds because a lot of them are not particularly good. To see what their returns have been, But the reason I discourage mutual funds is because they have a lot of fees. People say it's just 2%, just 3%. I did the calculation one time, over $29 million on a fund. The fees alone came to like $3-4 million. That's a heck of a lot of money to take out of that kind of chunk. And that's mutual fund for you. So index funds are probably better.
Was it from the amount being invested or from the profit being earned?
So they will get paid whether you win or lose.
Wow.
So if you like, you start with $100 and your $100 is now $80.
Yeah.
The only guaranteed person that gets paid is the fund manager. Wow. Through their fees, through the mutual fund fees. So they collect the fees regardless.
But you have a fund. Is it not mutual fund?
I have a fund.
Yeah.
It's not mutual fund.
Okay.
We do futures. That's what we focus on mostly.
Okay.
So we do us kind of differently. So we don't make money when you don't make money.
Oh,
just what I'm saying.
I see.
And all our partners are SEC registered.
Okay.
Those that I trade with, they're all SEC registered and they're heavily regulated. So they do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so work with people that know what they're doing.
And, if people want to invest through your fund, it has to be $100,000. Mo isn't playing. She doesn't do, the small money people.
Well, we work, like I said, I work together with other companies that are the expert in doing what they're doing. And if you hit me on Instagram, if you're interested, we're very selective with our... We have to be. We are very selective with who we let into the funds that that my partners manage. Mostly I focus on mostly the business development and they focus on the fund management because they are licensed to do that and they have all the regulations that regulate them. So we try our best. But also, okay. I'm a realtor.
Don't worry, I'll get her to at least mentor you. You're also into real estate.
Oh yes, heavily into real estate. That is actually the area I was beaten, but once beaten twice shy.
So now you're about going back.
Well, I'm not.
It sounds like Agboto
Well, with the ones I don't do I'm a realtor and I'm a licensed realtor in Houston, Texas. Yeah. So what we do is I find properties for people, regular properties on the market. I negotiate hard with developers. I can make sure my clients get in at a reduced rate compared to others. And or sometimes clients say to me, I'm looking at this particular location. We'll help them find properties. They don't pay us. They pay, go through the title company, which is the proper way to do it. So the title company, does all the paperwork, gets the funds, pay off all the liens and gives them excellent title. Okay. And they own their home. If they want us to manage it or do anything, we can help with that. So I play the realtor role in that one,
Interesting.
So yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mo for you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
On the Billionaire Habit podcast show. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I think I will leave your listeners with one advice, if
Please
I may.
Do.
I probably will put in a number 4 on my list of, things to look out for.
Okay.
And that is patience. I think as an entrepreneur, you're going to hit a lot of road bumps along the way. But be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process and the system. That's the truth. You have to understand that.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. Because you water your yam twice as much doesn't mean it'll go twice as fast. So this idea of being unduly ambitious, being unduly just go-getter, just working around the clock, doesn't mean that your business will all of a sudden become hugely successful. There is a process to things. And the Bible says that there's a time to sow, there's a time to reap. We're not going to smooth the harvest for you because all of a sudden, you want to activate one word that somebody gave to you somewhere. There's a process. It's going to, however long you think this process is going to take, it usually will take twice or 3 times as long. However hard you think it's going to be, it's going to be twice or 3 times as hard. But one thing I will say is that in your entrepreneur journey, there is fulfillment. If you're patient enough, you will eat the good of the land. But you've got to be patient. You've got to believe in the process and you will get there eventually. How we're going to get there is going to differ. What we're going to do is going to be different. But I've told you some of my, I've shared things that I've never shared publicly here. I really have. And I didn't think I'll be this brutally honest. But it's also important that we share not just the successes, but also the real facts and the failures as well. True. Because nobody really learns anything from success, but you learn all your lessons from failures. You know how many more times not to do it, how many more ways not to do it. And that's why my message is really here. Don't be carried away with the fluff you see on social media, or you think that some person has got it all right. Femi Tadela was the one that said it, that we're billionaires because we lost billions.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that you will come out of it. True. You'll come out on top. And, the sky is the beginning.
True. And guys, the funny thing is that I've realized that where the big entrepreneurs are talking, the big investors are talking, most of the conversations about how much they lost and still bounce back. It's not even much about how much they made. It's usually about when I lost this, where did and that's really what makes it fun. The fact that you could lose and figure it out again and come back again and reinvent yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You have to. That's like, what are you carrying the baggage for? What are you carrying the baggage for? You do what you have to do, but you have to move on eventually.
Absolutely.
Even if you kill someone, you pay your debt to society, you're integrated back to it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate this.
Got a
Guys,
great time.
So that's the end of this episode of the Billionaire podcast. See you next time. Love you. Bye-bye.